Welcome to Vetted, the channel dedicated to exploring the unexplained and sharing real accounts of the unknown. Today, we journey to the stark, beautiful, and often desolate landscape of the American wilderness for a close encounter that defies logic and challenges the very boundaries of our perceived reality. This is the compelling testimony of Tom Brubble, a geologist whose scientific understanding of the Earth was irrevocably shaken by an encounter with the otherworldly. In February 1982, amidst the quiet solitude of the Barber County Badlands, Tom came face to face with a silent craft and its enigmatic occupants in an experience that culminated in a blinding flash and missing time. It was February 1982, and I was out in the Barber County Badlands of southern Kansas. I'm a geologist, and this kind of terrain, the wilderness, it's my element. I'd spent countless hours, weeks, months even, out in remote areas, mapping the Earth, studying rock formations, understanding the ancient history written in the landscape. The Badlands, with their stark erosion and rugged beauty, are incredibly isolated. You're truly alone out there. That sense of solitude, of being utterly disconnected from civilization, it's usually something I find deeply peaceful, almost meditative. This particular evening, I was wrapping up a day of surveying. The sun was dipping below the horizon, painting the sky with those incredible, fierce Kansas colors. Fiery oranges, deep purples. The air was crisp, carrying the faint, earthy scent of dry soil and native grasses. I'd set up my tent in a secluded, sheltered spot, just as I'd done hundreds of times before. I was looking forward to a warm meal from my camp stove, maybe reading a bit, and then getting some well-earned rest. It was the end of another honest day's work in the field. I was just starting to organize my gear, getting ready to settle in for the night. The light outside was fading fast, plunging the Badlands into deep twilight. That's when I first noticed it. Not a sound, but a lack of sound. The usual symphony of the wilderness, the rustle of dry brush, the faint whisper of wind, the distant calls of nocturnal creatures. It all just vanished. It was as if someone had pressed a mute button on the entire world. The silence wasn't just the absence of noise. It was an active, oppressive, strange silence that seemed to absorb all ambient sound, creating an almost palpable vacuum around my tent. It felt unnatural, deeply unsettling, and then, as that profound silence deepened, an undeniable sensation crept over me. I felt the distinct, prickling feeling of being watched. It wasn't a fleeting thought or a paranoid whisper. It was a visceral, undeniable awareness. Every hair on my arms, on the back of my neck, seemed to stand on end. It was the kind of primitive instinct that screams presence, even when no physical presence is apparent. I scanned the interior of my tent, foolishly, as if something could be hiding within the small space. My heart began to quicken its beat, a steady, insistent thrum against my ribs. This wasn't the healthy adrenaline of a rattlesnake encounter. This was something far more primal, far more unsettling. The hair on my scalp literally tingled. The feeling intensified, becoming an insistent, undeniable pressure. I couldn't stay inside the tent. I had to know. Despite the creeping fear, a deeper, almost scientific curiosity began to override it. My training, my entire career, was about observing the unknown, documenting anomalies. This felt like the ultimate anomaly. With a slow, deliberate breath, I ventured outside my tent. The silence out there was even more profound, absolute. The air was cold, yet static, utterly still. And then I saw it. It wasn't hovering. It was landed. A colossal craft, dark against the deepening twilight, stood silently on the rugged terrain. Its size was immense, dwarfing my tent, easily the size of multiple large trucks. Its shape wasn't the classic saucer, nor was it a conventional airplane or helicopter. It was something else. Perhaps ovular or a rounded triangle, but utterly seamless, with a dull, matte metallic finish that absorbed rather than reflected the ambient light. There were no visible lights, no whirring rotors, no jet engines. It was just there, a silent, impossible monolith against the twilight sky. The ground around it seemed undisturbed, no scorch marks, no crushed vegetation from any discernible landing gear. It simply rested there, a profound violation of natural law. My geologist's brain immediately struggled to reconcile this. The weight of such an object should leave deep impressions in the soft earth. Yet it stood as if it weighed nothing at all. This wasn't some remote, high-altitude object. This was a landed craft directly in front of me, in the middle of nowhere. A cold dread, deeper than anything I'd ever known, began to bloom in my chest. This was no animal, no natural phenomenon. This was utterly, unequivocally alien. And then, just as my mind struggled to process the reality of the landed craft, my blood ran cold. From the side of the object, perhaps from a hatch I hadn't seen, was simply materializing into existence. 2 glowing blue figures appeared. They weren't just illuminated, they were light. An intense, ethereal blue light defined their forms. They were humanoid in shape. Distinct heads, torsos, limbs, but their bodies seemed to be pure, pulsating energy. They floated rather than walked, moving with an unnerving grace that was entirely devoid of any human effort. There was no sound as they emerged, no footsteps on the rocky ground, just the silent, eerie radiance of their presence. They seemed to be made of light itself, or perhaps cloaked in suits of pure luminescence. Their forms were slender, tall, and utterly silent. They didn't approach me directly, but their attention was clearly fixed on me. They radiated a profound sense of otherness, an intelligence far beyond anything I could fathom. My scientific mind, which had always sought logical explanations, was utterly overwhelmed by the sheer, impossible beauty and terror of their appearance. This wasn't a trick of the light. This was a direct confrontation with sentient, glowing beings. In that split second, amidst the terror and the overwhelming awe, a powerful instinct kicked in. Document. My geological training, my very essence as a field researcher, demanded evidence. My camera, an old SLR, hung from my neck. My hand, trembling but determined, instinctively reached for it, raising it to my eye. I remember framing the shot, the 2 ethereal blue figures, the impossible craft behind them. In that moment, the scientist, the observer, pushed through the fear. This was the moment of truth. My finger pressed the shutter button. I saw the flash burst, and then nothing. Total, absolute blackout. One moment, the brilliant blue figures, the click of the shutter, the flash. The next, nothing. No sensation, no thought, no awareness. Just a void. I don't know how much time passed. It could have been seconds, minutes, hours. I woke up inside my tent, lying on my sleeping bag, disoriented, a dull ache throbbing behind my eyes. The initial shock of awakening was confusion. Had I passed out? Was it all a dream? The tent flap was open, revealing the familiar, ordinary light of dawn. The oppressive silence was gone. replaced by the gentle whisper of the early morning wind and the chirping of distant birds. The world seemed perfectly normal, as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. But I knew the chilling clarity of the vision, the feeling of the silence, the terror, the instinct to grab my camera. It was too vivid, too real to be a mere dream. I stumbled out of my tent, my heart hammering against my ribs, scanning the vast, empty landscape. The spot where the massive craft had landed, where the glowing figures had appeared, was empty. There was no scorch mark, no impression in the ground, no trace of its presence. It was as if the very earth had been reset, wiping away the impossible. My gaze fell to my camera, still slung around my neck. This was it, the proof. My hands trembled as I took it off, fumbling with the casing. I opened it, and my stomach dropped. The film roll was completely blank, or perhaps not even there. Or if it was a digital camera, though unlikely for 1982, the memory card would have been wiped clean. The evidence was gone. The only remaining trace was the indelible imprint on my mind, and the memory of that blinding flash. The blackout hadn't just stolen time, it had stolen the proof. I sat there for a long time, the cold seeping into my bones, trying to reconcile the impossible with the rational world I had always inhabited. I, Tom Bribol, a geologist, a man of empirical data and verifiable facts, had witnessed something that defied every scientific principle I held dear. The silence, the craft, the glowing blue figures, the missing time. It wasn't just an oddity, it was a complete shattering of my worldview. How do you integrate such an experience into a life built on rock-solid evidence? The geologist in me had to admit, the terrain of reality was far more complex and mysterious than any map could ever show. This wasn't just a sighting, it was a profound personal discovery, one that I would carry silently for the rest of my life. The Badlands had given me more than just geological data. They had revealed a hidden, terrifying, and awe-inspiring truth. Tom Bribol's testimony from the Barber County Badlands is a chilling account of a close encounter marked by profound silence, the appearance of unique glowing humanoids, and the perplexing phenomenon of missing time and lost evidence. This kind of direct physical interaction with an unknown craft and its occupants, particularly when coupled with a blackout, remains one of the most enigmatic aspects of the UFO phenomenon. What are your thoughts on Tom's experience? Have you heard of similar sightings involving glowing figures or strange, non-traditional craft shapes? Share your insights and experiences in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Vetted for more true encounters, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next upload. Let's keep the conversation going.